Oneness with God. The mystery of oneness with God. You see, sometimes we study the Bible and we see stories like, and David killed Goliath, and you begin to wonder, how is that possible? You see stories like, and Elijah stood, and then only him a prophet, but then 480 prophets with another 400 prophets of Baal, and yet only one prophet was standing. But when 400 and another 400 gathered, they could not make results. But when one stood, there was a mighty result. It is the mystery of oneness with God. That one with God is majority. It does not matter the number in physical. When one stands in God, not in man or his effort, when a man stands in God, all of a sudden he becomes majority. The mystery of oneness with God. I want to show you how we fight in this kingdom. We don't fight by tools. We don't fight by merchandise. We don't fight by skills. We fight by God. So Elijah will come and stand and say, before God whom I stand. He said, before God whom I stand, there shall be no rain. He was not standing in his strength or his ability, because he knew he had no strength. He knew he had no ability, but he knew that there was a pathways. There was a narrow path that a man can journey, and he stood and he said, before God whom I stand. Where do you stand? Where do you stand on that day where time will come and ask you a question? Who is your God? Hallelujah. Amadaka. Hey, yeah. Hey. Oh my God. Hey, yeah. Inabokwate. Hey. Jesus. Hey, yeah. Oh my God. We are about to journey tonight to a place where we can receive the oracles of God. My God. You see, let me tell you something that the patriarchs did that gave them relevance among the immortals. For every dimension, there was a name they could capture. There was a name that they could capture for their dimension and for their generation. So they can gather, and then the Bible said that Jacob raised stones in the particular and he called it Ebenezer. And he said, for hitherto has he helped us. So he could capture a name. He could capture a name. In another season, they can capture a name Jehovah Jireh. They can capture a name Jehovah Shammah. So there are names that these men knew that if a man can travel and capture a name and stand with that name, they can rule their generation. There are names in the archives of eternity that we must capture. And then Jesus said that he has given us a name which is high above every other name. I said, by the mention of that name, Jesus, he said, all of a sudden, every knee must bow and every tongue must begin to confess that Jesus is God. Now hear this. He said, of things in heaven, of things on earth, and of things under the earth. So the name does not limit us to the things we see, even the things we don't see. So even spirits begin to obey. Spirits begin to respond. Because there's a name that controls the three realms of life: the angelic, the mundane, and the demonic. And when a man comes with that name, all of a sudden everything begins to obey, everything begins to respond, everything begins to hear, because a man stands and walks with God. He said, before God whom I stand, before God whom I stand. So we now have a name. The mystery of oneness with God. You see, you can never know how important you are in life until you have journeyed deep into Abba and discover the reality for yourself. This was why men like Enoch, the Bible can recover and say that Enoch walked with God. He was not relevant until he began to walk with God. He was not known until he began to walk with God. So David can gather 400 broken and battered men, and that was their credentials. He says 400 broken and battered men. He said, these men had lost all hope. These men had no joy there. They had nothing of them. But when he gathered them at the cave at Adullam, all of a sudden, men that had no name, the Bible had and Shammah, son of Agee. So he had a name called Shammah. But because he was broken, no one knew his name. But when he captured God, when he began to stand with God, when he became one with God, when he came out, he said, all of a sudden, he said, Shammah, son of Agee. He said he held a sword and he killed 800 men. A man that could stand with God. The Bible spoke of Joshua. That Joshua stood and then he said, let the sun stand by the mountains of Ajalon, and let the moon stand by the valleys of Gibeon. And it was so. So mountains can hear, can respond. The sun and the moon can respond.